Welcome back to a new episode about the exercises of the built-in functions. So I created 7 exercises and I want to go through them with you. So let's start with exercise number 1. Create an array, numbers, and use a built-in function that sorts an array in descending. Now I have a link attached, but I won't be looking at it, and I will start programming right on. So let's create a variable called numbers and set it equal to an array. Now let's create an associative array. Let's say that milk associated with 2, well, it's a price. Let's say that cheese is $4 and 7-Up is $3. So now we want to use a function called ARSort, so array sort. And inside our parentheses, we want to add a parameter, and that's numbers. And in a line below, we want to print _r, and we want to pass in numbers. So let's save it. Refresh the browser, and you can see that the array is sorted by price. So cheese is $4, which is the most expensive one, then 7-Up, which is 3, and milk is equal to 2. Let's continue on with exercise number 2. Birthday countdown. Create a simple birthday countdown script that counts the number of days between the current day and your birthday. So use the link for all the datetime functions in PHP. In order to do this, we need to use a function called mktime. So let's create a variable called target days and set it equal to a variable called mktime, like I said. And we want to pass in, well, the seconds need to be 0, the minutes, the hours, minutes, seconds, and we want to focus on the day. So my birthday is on the 19th of July, so I want to say in July, on the 19th in 2020. And we need to create a new variable with the date of today. And let's create a variable called today and set it equal to time. And we don't need to add any parameters. So now we got the target day and today's day. So we need to calculate the difference. So let's create a variable called difference days and set it equal. And like I said, I like to work my math calculations inside parentheses. So I want to subtract target days from today. And if we do the opposite, we will get a negative number. So let's not do that. And now we will do something that we haven't discussed before. Well, let me show you what will happen if we do not do it. And then I will show you what will happen if we use it. So let's create a variable called days and set it equal to variable difference days divided by 86,400, which is equal to 24 hours, 68,400 seconds in 24 hours. Because we want to recalculate it to days and not to minutes or seconds or whatever. So let's create an echo and let's say echo out days till next birthday and associated with the variable days, and let's add some more text, days. So let's save it, refresh it, and you can see that days till the next birthday is 227, but we get a floating number. So what you can do in order to avoid a floating number is to add inside parentheses int. So the system knows that days will be an integer, and if we add float, it will be a floating number. But if we add integer, you can see that everything behind the decimal point is removed. Alright, let's continue on with the third exercise. Generating random float numbers. Create a random number function called randNumber that generates random float numbers, so not integers. Just like the other exercises, you have a link for the random number function. This is a tricky one, and I try to let you think about it, how you could do it, because you cannot generate floating numbers as a random number. But the way you could do it is by dividing it by 10. So let's create a variable called randNumber and set it equal to the variable rand and we want to add two params. So let's say that we want to search for a number in between 0 and 100. What we need to do is to divide it by 10. So let's echo out rand numbers. So I will show you what I actually mean with this. Save it. Refresh the browser and it's 2.9, 8.9, 9.4, 9.5. So we created our own floating numbers by dividing it by 10. Alright, let's continue on with the next exercise. Exercise number 4. Create a variable called string with a long piece of text and create a function, lowercase check, that converts the string to all lowercase. Echo out the text with lowercase, and you can use a link for the datetime function. So let's remove my code. Let's create a string and set it equal to something. This can be whatever you like. So I want to say that my name is Dari. I'm 24 years old and I live in the Netherlands. I'm getting pretty old. And I'm adding some punctuation marks, so I have to start with a capital. I like PHP because it's a programming language. So let's create a function, because that's what we have to do, called lowercase check. And let's pass in our string. And inside our function, we want to echo out string to lower, which is the function that we need to use. And we want to pass in string. So let's call our function and pass in an argument string, save it, refresh the browser, and you can see that we're only working with lower cases right now. Alright, let's continue on with exercise number 5. Create a variable with a long piece of text and create a function called search text that has two parameters called string and punctuation. Find out the amount of punctuations inside of a string. This method has no return value, so this might be a pretty difficult one. Well, we can use the same string, so let's do that. And let's add a new variable called punctuation. Set it equal to 0, because we want to count. And let's create a function called search text. Now let's pass in two parameters, string and punctuation. Inside our function, we want to loop through the string, so we need to create a for loop. And the initialization is variable I is equal to 0. The condition is variable y needs to be less than string length, and we want to pass in the string. I hope this makes sense, because we're looking at the string length of the variable string, and we want to increase variable y by 1. So what we need to do in the for loop is to create an if statement, and our condition is that variable string, and this is something that you haven't seen before, two brackets, and what we want to pass in is variable y of the condition of our for loop. And this needs to be equal to something that we're looking for, which is a punctuation mark. And if we found it, we want to increase punctuation mark by 1. So let's go outside of our for loop and echo out some text. And the text has punctuation. Let's save it and let's see if it works outside of our function. Let's call our function search text and pass in string and punctuation. So let's save it, refresh the browser, and you can see that the text has 3 punctuations, which is 1, 2, 3. So let's add 2 more, save it, refresh it, and now the text has 5 punctuations. So let's continue on with the next exercise called lowest and highest values. Create an array called only numbers that has an integer value inside of it. Use the minimum and maximum function in order to get the highest and lowest value in an array. So let's remove our text. And let's create a value called only numbers and set it equal to an array. And inside our array, let's add some random numbers. So let's create an echo, because it's just a min function and a max function. It's a pretty easy one. So let's echo out the lowest value is concatenated from min, and we want to check only numbers, and the highest value is max, and we want to pass in the same array. So let's save it, refresh the browser, and you can see that the lowest value is 2, which is actually true, and the highest value is 56, which is also true. So let's continue on with the last exercise, which is called string repeat. And we need to create a variable called string and repeat it 8 times with a function. So let's remove our code. This is an easy one if you have seen the website that I showed you with all the strings. So let's create a string and set it equal to my name is Dari. And we want to echo out a function called string str_repeat. And we want to pass in 2 parameters. The first one is the string, and the second one is the amount of times that you want to repeat it. And in our case, it's 8. So let's save it. Well, let's add a break. Refresh the browser, and my break didn't work, but it got printed out 8 times. Thank you for watching this episode, and I will be seeing you in the next one.